give you the phrase and you give it back. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto suche doye alahadi sanmiao sanputoshi.
Namo saranto suche doye alahadi sanmiao sanputoshi.
Okay, if you can read it, let's do it together. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。And what we said in English was, supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in a million eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Okay, Connie, thank you. Well done. All right, so that's our simplified Dharma request. Today, we talked about, we had our 4 o'clock conversation, which was, originally it was called Q&A. Then we turned it into, a round table today. It was called a round table, yeah. And the topic was giving. So gifts that you've been given and gifts that you've given. So sometimes often the giving creates more happiness than the getting. So that was we had some really memorable stories. There's a thing called found songs, and we've got a found Dharma song. That is to say, it wasn't meant to be a Dharma song, but it is a great Dharma song, written by Chris Christopherson, and it's about pay it forward. It's about that kind of giving that Stacy today at lunch told us that our entire retreat is, you could say, based on pay it forward. And this is a found Dharma song. And actually, the fun part about being the one who shares these songs is there's a story that comes with the song. So I get to tell the story and then share the song. This story is a John Steinbeck novel, anecdote, Grapes of Wrath. How many people know Grapes of Wrath? Okay, you read it in what? Is it now eighth grade, high school, right? Freshman, sophomore? Okay, sophomore year maybe. Sophomore English. And so Grapes of Wrath, for people who don't know, some people call it the Great American Novel. There's a lot of Great American novels, but that's definitely been nominated as one of the good ones for Great American Novel. And it's the story of the Dust Bowl. What was the dates of the Dust Bowl? 30s. So what used to be fertile farmland in Oklahoma, Kansas, there was a drought, and the crops dried up and the topsoil blew away. And so people who were happily living there for generations suddenly had to pull up stakes and travel or starve. So they did. And they took anything that moved, old trucks, old cars, converted trucks, and put the mattresses on there and then put grandma in her rocking chair on top of the mattress and headed west. You know, and grandma's like, I'm not so sure about this, you know. And they're heading west. And they were called Okies from Oklahoma, right? And you know where a lot of them landed? Sonoma County. If you go around, I took a class at Sonoma Community College, a class in storytelling, folklore, and most of the students were grandchildren of Okies who came in the 30s in the Dust Bowl. It's called the Dust Bowl era. So Steinbeck wrote about this, the human tragedy of thousands of families picking up and heading west, looking for what? Pastures of plenty, which they were told was in California. Oh boy. Well, they got to California and discovered something less than pastures of plenty. They discovered, orchards where you could be paid 6 cents for a box of peaches, but you had to fight with another 1,000 people who were trying to pick the same peaches, blah, blah, blah. So, okay. Chris Christopherson, Red Grapes of Wrath, picked out one anecdote and wrote a beautiful song about it. Now, I'll tell you what it is, because it doesn't spoil it to know what's happening. The truck pulls up outside a cafe on the road somewhere. Maybe it's in Nevada, maybe it's, somewhere in Eastern California. And the truck with grandma on top, in her rocking chair, and kids all over the truck, and the truck is overheating, and mom's just got no energy left, and dad's in there trying to drive, trying to keep it all together, right? So the truck pulls up, and 2 kids jump out of the truck and go running into the rest stop, into the cafe, and immediately plaster their noses onto the candy rack. And it's one of those candy racks with the slowly revolving tray with the cashews on the tray, and penny candies. What are penny candies? They're these solid sugar, hard rolled, they're called jawbreakers also, only not round. You lick them and they last all day because they're solid sugar, and they're maybe like, candy striped or something. That's a penny candy. And a penny was a lot of money back then, So the kids are like, faces plastered, and it's like looking at the tray go around. And so one of the kids, the older brother says, "How much is them candies?" And the waitress looks at him, looks at their truck, looks at him again and says, "How much you got?" "We got a penny between us," says the kids. She says, "They're 2 for a penny." Kids are like, So she hands them, and the kids dash into the truck and disappear into the mattresses. And everybody, "Give me a lick, I got a lick." And my little sister, like, So there's 2 truck drivers sitting drinking coffee. And the truck driver goes, "Them candies ain't 2 for a penny." The waitress says, "So what's it to you?" Right? And so truck drivers finish their coffee, they get up, they nod goodbye. Waitress comes over, she says, "Hey, you left too much money." Truck driver says, "So what's it to you?" Pay it forward. Right? So Chris Christopherson, there's a song, he said. If you know it, sing along. The scene was a small roadside cafe. The waitress was sweeping the floor. 2 truck drivers drinking their coffee. 2 oaky kids by the door. "How much are them candies?" they asked her. "How much have you got?" she replied. "We've only a penny between us. Them's 2 for a penny," she lied. The daylight grew heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again. One truck driver called to the waitress after the kids went outside. "Them candies ain't 2 for a penny. So what's it to you?" she replied. In silence they finished their coffee. They got up and nodded goodbye. She called, "Hey, you left too much money." "So what's it to you?" they replied. The daylight grew heavy with thunder, with the smell of the rain on the wind. Ain't it just like a human? Here comes that rainbow again. I can never sing it without getting teary somehow. Isn't that a good song? You got Twinkle. So that's a ballad. It's rare that you get a literary reference from John Steinbeck, right? Okay, here it is. We want everybody, please, to turn to page 8. Where we left it was we left the 5 objects of desire being likened to an arrow of lust. And it was mentioned that arrows go inside you and you can't pull them out without doing further harm, right? So lust being named of the 5 objects of desire. What are the 5 desires? Everybody knows those. First is wealth. Second is sex. Third is fame. Fourth is food. And the last one is, yes, sleep, but it means, physical comfort that takes precedence over cultivation. So being lazy, basically. Sleep is the biggest one. So wealth, sex, fame, food, sleep. 5 desires. And if you're a meditator, there are 5 subtle desires. Those are 5 coarse ones because they're outside. Money, people forget everything because of money. Money comes first over, clear cut a forest. Cut it down to shave the forest so nothing is going to live there for the profit you get from that one timber harvest. Never mind how many decades nothing's going to live there, you got your profit. That's desire, right? So, money. Second is what makes the world go round, is the attraction between men and women. Pretty strong. They say, 将军难过美人关, right? Even the generals find it difficult to go past the door of the beautiful person, right? Beautiful woman. Big, strong general, afraid of nothing, going through blood and guts and glory. And yet, if he sees someone that attracts his eye, he's weak as a kitten, right? Fame is a strong one. It's a desire because it pulls us out. And what is it? It's just reputation. You can say face. In order to save face, if somebody dishonors you, you will kill, right? If somebody, they have these killings in Pakistan where a daughter, if she is, if she's promised and then something happens between the couple and the family's fame, the family's reputation is harmed, the daughter is killed, thrown down a well, It's like, there are, Dr. Akpinar, Snezhana Akpinar, tells about vendettas in Croatia that go back 6 centuries. Somebody did somebody wrong in the 1300s, you never forget it. You make that family pay forever, right? So wrongs that can't, to the face, to honor that can't be righted, that's fame. It's a desire, and it kills us. Then there's food, which will end your cultivation until you digest, right? Too much and too little are the same. If you're too weak, the Buddha starved himself till he couldn't sit up, didn't work. And if you overeat, you can't sit up any either. So neither one is right. It's a desire. And we turn living beings into food, take baby calves away from their mother the first day they're born, and the bond between a mother and her child is the strongest thing. So, a desire. And then sleep, comfort. We spend how much of our lives asleep? What is it? 1/3. Yeah. And that's time that we could be transforming ignorance. So, desires. Those are the coarse outside. What are the subtle desires? Sights, sounds, smells, sensations of touch, and dharmas. What is it? Things that delude us as we sit, that pull us out. So there's coarse and there's subtle. But what did the Buddha say? He picked one. Manjushri Bodhisattva said, lust, that one is like an arrow. It will turn all of our subtle listening into a search for beauty, for that hot guy, right? For that pretty girl. Oh boy, or, for that, the opposite, if you're inclined towards the same gender, it pulls you out, doesn't matter. It's the thing outside. It's that beautiful thing. So, we talked about that. Those are the 5 objects of desire. May all living beings pull out the arrow of lust and get ultimate peace and calm. How could that be when the world turns through wealth, sex, fame, food, and sleep? The marketplace depends upon us getting shot with that arrow and wanting, I want that, I want that, I want that. My mother picked up on one. I remember we were walking through I guess it was a Kmart or something. And my mother, was walking with my mom. I think I was in college at the time. And there was a couple in front of us. And for some reason, Kmart had monkeys. There were monkeys, like macaws or something. They had a shipment. They had the pet department, and there were monkeys. And this woman, yeah. And this is in Toledo. Yeah, progressive Kmart's in Toledo. And so there was this couple, and they were folks who were hurting. There's a lot of suffering in this couple, you could tell. They had a kid, and the mom wasn't taking care of herself, or the kid, and the dad was just kind of following mom, And the mom stopped in front of the monkey crate, and she was transfixed. She said, "Jim, I'm going to get me one of them things. Jim, you want to get me one of them things, Jim?" She said, And my mother heard that, and she was outraged. She couldn't stop talking. She said, she wants one of those monkeys? Why does she want a monkey? That's not right. She shouldn't do that. And Mom, calm down, calm down. So it pushed my mother's button that this couple, "I'm going to get me one of them things, Jim." It offended her. I'll never forget it. Yes. I don't know why I introduced that story, but I'll never forget it, because it was an arrow of, and this woman, she wanted a monkey, and Jim probably got her one of them things, But what's that?
Is this part of the vegetarian part?
We had just never forgot it. Boy, oh boy. So the next time you see monkeys in Kmart, say a prayer for my mom, all right? May all living beings not be offended by people that aren't awake enough to pull out the arrow of lust for monkeys. Boy, oh boy. Something, just gets in there. And so, we depend, the commerce, the wheels of industry depend upon us getting shot by the arrow of lust. And that's what makes profits for companies, is the arrow of lust being shot. Traditionally, classically, what was it? If you go to the Louvre in Paris, you see these paintings of cupids. Cupids, right? These little cherubs flying around in the air with bows and arrows, shooting down at Persephone or, at Eros. And you see Eros personified. She's a goddess there, and she's being... is she doing the shooting, or is she being shot? Where's Doug? How does it work? This Eros...
Shooting.
She's doing the shooting. So the cherubs are doing Eros's bidding to shoot an arrow into somebody to make them fall in love. Right? Cupid? Mm-hmm. You see them on Valentine's Day, little fat babies. And
I'm sure you remember that one thing that Shukla it always stuck with me. People say, "You guys want to know what sex is all about? What desire is? It's desire for form. This core.
Form.
Form. It's our desire for form.
Form.
Of course, with men and women, it's obvious. I mean, for women, it's more subtle, but for men, it's overt. But it's a detachment to form. That's what it is. It's a powerful attachment to form.
Hallelujah. And I mean, just let's test it out. So, how many TV shows, how many movies have we seen where we get involved in the story, right? I mean, the attractive couple fall in love, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy meets girl again, right? Those are the beats of the story. Turn the flat panel display 90 degrees, where did it all go? It's just pixels on the screen. That's form, right? Turn it back and it's a story. Oh my God. Oh, I can't believe it. Oh, I hope she falls. Oh, it's so lovely. Turn it. Oh, where did it all go? It's just form. And, technology gives us beautiful examples of what the Buddha was describing. It's just pixels. We think it's real. You look out, it's, So, Mara's daughters come up to the prince under the tree. They dance for him. They, sit in his lap, pet his face, You're so handsome. I can make you happy, And the Buddha goes, well, that would be nice. Thank you. That's a really kind offer. But you know what? You're going to get old. You better start thinking about your own cultivation, And she's, you've ruined the mood, So it's like, and the Buddha told the truth. And so the prince, right? He's not the Buddha yet. And he defeats him with the truth, which is impermanence, So where did the form go? It changes. But boy, when when we've been shot by the arrow of lust, it's like, oh boy, oh boy, that's a form I like. So, yeah. So what does the Bodhisattva do? In the midst of that, she says a prayer. That's why we worded it this way. This used to all be, I vow that, right? We talked about this. Jin Chuan, Shi, YC, and the others. We talked about this. Should we change them all? Because that second line, it used to be, I vow that living beings. We thought, let's put it inside the Bodhisattva's mind. And what do we say? We say, may this be so. May all living beings pull out the arrow. So instead of seeing those forms and going, yippee, that's what I want. I want one of them things. Instead of going for the monkey, we go, oh man, I actually have everything I need already inside. Suppose I got me one of them things, then what? Then we discover that monkey doesn't like living in a cage, or the monkey prefers running up into the rafters and it won't come down, and it keeps pissing on everything from the rafters, and on the sofa and on the Buddha altar, and it's not what I thought. That form turns out to be not what I thought. I was happier without it, but at the time. So every single one of these verses is a prayer, has a prayer in it, which is a method of turning the state, of showing us what is contained inside that monkey, inside that beautiful form. You get the car you wanted, the BMW, the hot model of the BMW, and then you're out there on the road and you can't handle the speed and you run it off into the bushes and scratch the paint. Instantly $10,000 less value in that beautiful car. And then you discover that your insurance didn't cover it, and then you get sued, and then, I wish I'd never bought that car. Turns out to be more than what you thought, not what you thought. So lust becomes an arrow, ouch. Okay, so we can go on and on, but that's the point. This is a particularly powerful one because it's right in front of us. Okay, next one. We read them all the way through to page 9. Next one's pretty close to home here. At festive occasions, rock concerts, and musical gatherings, I think, may all living beings see that such pleasures are empty and take Dharma as their enjoyment. Okay, so look at that. At festive occasions, parties, the Buddha was a party pooper, Manjushri Bodhisattva. Not necessarily. Can you be there without spoiling the fun for others? It's not the case that if you go to a dinner party, everybody has to be a Buddhist. Can you be a Buddhist at the dinner party and not spoil everybody's time and be perfectly happy? Because why? You recognize. Remember, we talked about recognizing when it was filiality, recognizing that the householder's life is empty, but that doesn't mean bad or wrong. Okay? There's nothing more insufferable in the world than a brand new vegetarian who knows that they are right and everybody who eats meat is evil and needs to be scolded. Okay, so I'm a brand new vegetarian, my first year in college, and I come home for Thanksgiving dinner. 19 years old, not eating meat for the first time with my buddies. We were doing what was called the Zen macrobiotic diet, right? Brown rice, remember the brown rice diet? Anybody do the brown rice diet? Right? Ozawa, George Ozawa, right? And brown rice and sesame seeds, sesame salt, and tamari soy sauce. And steamed veggies, what? Aduki beans. The right, and we had to get them from Erewhon, right? You had to mail for aduki beans. One place in America. And so we were insufferable, man. We were just so obnoxious. And so we were pure and everybody else. So I go home, and it's Thanksgiving dinner, and I had grown a goatee at this point. All right? So my dad looks at that, He doesn't say anything. My dad's cool. He's like, I'll just let it pass, So it's time that he says the grace, and he brings out the electric knife to carve the turkey. Everybody have an electric knife, a carving knife? And he's carving through the turkey, right? This big turkey. And I go, that's really a dead body. What do you have a dead body on your dining table for? My dad picks me up by the collar and throws me out into the snow. Stay out there until you apologize to your mother, I'm not going to apologize to there's a dead body on the, It was cold out, and I got really hungry, So my mother later fed me some mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce out the back door. So it was with, Man, oh man. So bit by bit, you learn that not everybody has to be a Buddhist because you've decided that you're going to cultivate, right? You can cultivate very happily in the midst of festive occasions and musical gatherings without having to bum everyone else out, right? And often, it's the less you say about your practices, the more convincing you are to everyone else that it might be real, right? So you only learn that, though, the hard way, especially if you're a guy. You want to show your stuff. You're different now, You've grown. And, boy, parents have to be really, really patient when the kid comes home with newfound purity. I'm so pure, you're going to hate me. Oh, boy, oh boy. So, in festive occasions, musical gathering. So here's Bhikkhu Bodhi, right? Bhikkhu Bodhi comes to city of the Dharma realm for our Buddhist monastic gathering. This is like 2002 or something like that, and Heng Sure was hosting the Buddhist gathering. And so Bhikkhu Bodhi is, people respect him. He's the senior monk in the Theravada tradition. And everybody knew that I had brought a guitar to the conference, and they were afraid that Bhikkhu Bodhi was not going to show up if he knew I was playing the guitar, because Theravada is very strict, right? They don't play musical instruments at all. They don't even play wooden fish. They only chant, you know. So here Bhikkhu Bodhi's there, big smile, you know, smiling, and it's time for a song. And so I bring out my guitar, and everybody's going, looking at me and the guitar, looking at Bhikkhu Bodhi, and looking at me and the guitar. So I'm playing a song, and dedication of merit, and then I set it down, and there's a silence, you know, and Bhikkhu Bodhi says, you know, he says, if I could go back and get the Buddha to change any of the rules, it would probably be the one that says monks can't make music. And everybody goes, you know. What a gracious thing to say, you know. So Bhikkhu Bodhi is now actually playing a keyboard. Did you know? He's on YouTube. Bhikkhu Bodhi is actually playing Buddhist hymns on an electric keyboard. Maybe I was responsible. I don't know. How guilty should I be? But he says, I think this is a way to express. And if you look at Master Hua, Shifu was a painter, Shifu was a sculptor, Shifu was a poet, Shifu wrote essays, right? Dharma Master Lai has been a monk for 4 decades, right? After a while, you express yourself. You know, you got it. He's a fan of Han Shan the poet. He has the Pacific Northwest's largest statue of Han Shan in Shirda, without a doubt. Right? So anyway, that's the monks and nuns who last usually get hobbies somewhere in there. Anyway, so okay, moving on here. When I am in a palace or a house, I think, may all living beings enter the sage's state and be free forever from defiled craving. When I'm in a palace or a house. Okay, this, the Avatamsaka was first compiled in a time when there were kings. The Shakya clan was a royal family, right? They were Kshatriyas, they weren't Brahmins. They weren't the priest class, they were the warrior class, the king class, the ruling class. So a lot of the language of the Avatamsaka has to do with kings. For example, chapter 40, Samantabhadra's Practices and Vows, it says, there's a section in it where it says, at the last instant of life, when your consciousness is about to leave you, nothing can follow you, not your palace, not your royal courtiers, not your elephants, not your treasures, not your throne, not your countries, not your wife, not your kids. So it's written in the language of kings. So that was the ruling system for many countries back then. And that we see that echoed here in a palace. Sometimes you're in the palace. If you live there, that's one thing. If you work there, if you're a minister, if you're a servant, if you're a slave, if you're, supply the food for the palace, or if you're a guest in the palace. What do? You look around, you see the big space, you see the lush marble and gold and stuff, the paintings and all, and you think, what Bodhisattva says, may all beings become sages, where their body is adorned like a palace with the 32 hallmarks, and be free from craving for externals. Okay? So this is actually one of the first ones that is repeated throughout the rest of the text, which is what? You're in an environment, and instead of being turned by the environment, you turn the environment. Everybody follow what's going on? So the theme was, are you skilled at using your mind? 110 questions began the chapter. How do you cultivate for merit and virtue? The answer is, you skillfully use your mind, right? So here it is. You're in the palace, you look around, Anybody been to like Versailles or the Taj Mahal, right? Yeah. So Lauren's been both of those. So, everybody been to the Zijinchang, yeah, the Forbidden City in Beijing, right? You walk around and oh my Lord. You been there too? Gee whiz, Lauren's traveled the world. So it's like you look and you think, how can, you still sleep in, a 6-foot bed. You still put on your pants, one leg at a time, one dress at a time. How can one person be in charge of, like the Forbidden Palace, it's, miles, square miles. And the Son of Heaven is the occupant until he's murdered or poisoned. Never mind, that's another story. But for the time being, he is the Son of Heaven. And you think, is that right? Well, we don't have to look at the time of kings, we have to look at the 1%. We live in a time when something like 42 families own as much as all the rest. I was reading the other day, they say there's 123 families who determine who gets elected president, who pay for it, essentially. 140 families who are the ones who donate enough to keep the wheels of politics rolling on both sides, right? So, how interesting. What about the rest of everybody? So, democracy, one person, one vote, once upon a time. So, in the palace, when I'm in a palace, I look around, I go, whoa, this is huge. So, the Bodhisattva says, may all beings have the 自在, the presence of the sage who says, yeah, this is a nice big house. Meanwhile, I still have to watch my mind. It comes down to my next thought, whether or not I am free of suffering or just a guy with a big house who happens to be called king or emperor, right? Which emperor didn't die? The question, right? So which sage didn't die? Everyone. So can we take what's called a square inch as our palace? Question. Okay, moving on. We got to get through, got to make time because we're in our second day. Do you realize that? Second day of the retreat is about to, sands are running out here. When I wear a necklace of precious gems, I think, may all living beings renounce all vain ornaments and find what is true and real. Okay, here vain works both ways. Remember, vain can mean you're so vain, meaning proud and haughty, but it also means in vain, meaning useless, not helpful in terms of reducing suffering. So when I wear a precious necklace, I think, may all beings renounce all useless ornaments, pretty but don't help you. Find what is true and real. What's that wonderful O. Henry short story called The Necklace? Anybody know that one? Any English majors? You read The Necklace, O. Henry, right? Well, how does it go? The necklace goes from hand to hand, and there's all this. I shouldn't bring it up if I can't do it for you. Anybody know that one? No. Anybody teach it? Any English teachers here? The necklace?
The fake.
It's a fake one, and what's the tension in the story?
She really wanted one, so she borrowed one from a friend she thought was.
Yes, tell the story. It's a wonderful short story. It's always included in collections of best short stories. How does it go?
So a young woman, she wants to go to a party, and she is poor and doesn't have jewelry. So she borrowed expensive pair of pearl necklace from a friend. She went to the party, had a great time, went back, but lost the jewelry. Can't return it to a friend. So she borrowed money to buy a pair of pearl necklace.
You left off one piece, her hair. Her hair, the most valuable thing she has. Right, go ahead. Illustrate. She has very beautiful long hair. That's her most beautiful asset.
So she sold her hair in order to buy the necklace. The version of the story that I read is she borrowed money, buy the necklace, returned it to the friend, and worked hard for many, many years to return the necklace, return the money. And then after many years, when she's all old and wrinkly and told the truth to her friend said, "But that pair of necklace I gave you, those are fake pearls."
Yeah.
It was paste gems, right? Ironic. Yeah, tragic. Thank you. Yeah. In vain, right? So she loses her beauty in order to pay back what she thought was the value of the necklace. Turns out it was stage jewelry. She didn't know that. So the necklace, right? When I wear a necklace of precious gems, I think, may all living beings renounce vain ornaments and find what is true and real. What is true and real is read your short stories. You never know when you're going to be called on the spot, to tell the story. Thanks, Dylan. Okay, next, what? When I go up a staircase, I think, may all beings ascend the stairs of the right Dharma and see through everything clearly. Okay, this is the first one that's going to be repeated throughout the same theme, which is the Bodhisattva goes through his day, her day, sees a staircase. That's an opportunity for a prayer. Okay, you could say this chapter is the number one mindful chapter. Mindful, which is what everything the cultivator sees during the day triggers a spiritual response. Okay, ordinary person sees a staircase and thinks, "Oh, my lumbago is acting up. I wish this was an electric stair ascender." You know, they look at the staircase and it's a thought of I'm hurting. It's a reflective thought about discomfort, right? Grumble, complain. See a staircase, complain. Would be a normal aging response. You know. The Bodhisattva looks at it and goes, "Oh yeah, I would just wish everybody would climb up on the Dharma and just understand, have wisdom." So every situation is an opportunity to give yourself away a little more. That's one of the keys to the whole Purifying Practices chapter, is Bodhisattva doesn't lose a moment in going from the small to the limitless, from the self to the living beings, to multitudes, right? Every situation is a chance to give away self and what belongs to self, me and mine. Okay? So, mindful, right? This is beautiful. And when you're doing this, you don't have time to complain, to find fault, to gossip, to be unhappy. You're busy. It's the work of a cultivator, is giving the self away, right? That's the what do you say, that's the subtext of this chapter. What's really going on is giving the self away. Okay? Moving on. When I have something to give, I think, may all living beings be able to let go of everything, their hearts free of affection and clinging. When I have something to give, I think, may all living beings be able to let everything go, their hearts free of affection and clinging. Good? Clear? So for the Bodhisattva, the value of something is not in its resale value. The value of something is its ability to make a connection with someone, to make others happy through giving. Okay, same theme. In a crowd or gathering, I think, may all living beings renounce the dharmas of acquisition and accomplish omniscience. So the Bodhisattva is standing in line it's a really hot day and the Bodhisattva is standing in line for a slushie, right? Or a root beer float. And everybody else had the same idea, and he's number 12 in line. It's going to be 30 minutes before he gets to the root beer float. And instead of being upset and grumbling or cutting the line or quitting and being upset and taking it out on the other people in the car, he says, may all beings, while they're waiting in line for the root beer float, renounce the dharmas of acquisition and go for the invisible but real stuff of wisdom, omniscience, omniscience, right? Knowing everything. In other words, wisdom. So, standing in line is pretty mundane. Everybody has that experience, and the Bodhisattva uses that opportunity to bless everybody with a prayer. Okay? You could, my eye caught Darius sitting back there so peacefully, and I've seen times when the tea shop is crazy busy, right? And he's got to keep 4 or 5 different customers happy with tea, never forgetting what they ordered. What if he's serving a flight of tea? It's like they're in the middle of how many? 4 different kinds, Darius? Yeah. 4 different kinds of tea. He has to remember who's at what stage, and please him. And if he gets it mixed up, of course that customer is going to no, you gave me that same tea twice, And like, what an opportunity to you. I think you said one year here at Buddha Root Farm that you saw you invisibly. Every time you poured tea, you were anointing someone's head with sweet dew. Is that accurate? I didn't make that up. Something like that. Yeah, right. So what a beautiful thing. Instead of like, hey, buddy, wait your turn. I'm busy here. It's like, no, I'm pouring you tea, and actually I'm blessing you with wisdom water. That turns a tiresome job and being busy and pressured into an opportunity to take both you and the person you're serving to another level. How nice. And it's just it's the mind. Can you skillfully use your mind? I don't want, I'm naming people, that's not very,
Can I bring a story in here? This is a Shirkin story. We had to take him one time to immigration, passport thing. I think he had to update something. I can't remember whether it was green card, whatever. But anyway, we went to this place downtown San Francisco. It's just loaded with people. Big, long line. He walks right to the very front and cuts right in front of the first guy in line. And everybody goes, "Hey, you can't do that!" The interpreter just turned around and just beamed at everybody. Like he can beam. It's like this big beam of light. I just wanted to come and get my passport. Everything okay? I go to back. And then he went to the back. And it just calmed everybody in the whole group. This is, it's pretty raggedy.
Oh, it's chaos.
Crew. Yeah, it's just all these people annoyed and hours and hours of waiting. And he just calmed everybody down. And we walked to the back. Everything okay? And you could just see this thing, this whole jingja, this whole thing just like deflate. It was really something. Occasionally you get to see stuff like that.
Yeah, right. Beautiful. In a crowd or gathering, I think, may all beings renounce the dharmas of acquisition and accomplish omniscience, where you are fearless and your only thought is helping. Instead of irritation, damn, this is taking a long time. It's like, nah, we're all in it together. Oh, I got another one. Similar kind of story. First time I ever joined an interfaith gathering was at Stanford University for a United Religions Initiative. Very first, they called it a global council. And there was another monk, and it was Bhante, not Dharmawara, but Bhante, the old Cambodian monk. Bhante, you may know, he always wore his pink woolly hat, his pink navy cap. Forgot his name. He didn't speak. That went on for a week. He didn't speak once. But he always sat. He never failed to be in his group at the right time, on time, sitting at the table, beaming, just the way Dharmaster Live mentioned, cheerful, smiling like this, you know. He's about 5'1", you know, and he's just beaming. And everybody kind of, they didn't know how much English he spoke, so nobody like said, you know, your turn, Bhante, you know. They just kind of let it. So get to the last day, and we're all standing in a large circle. And Bishop Swing, who's the founder of URI, says, he puts his palms together. This Bishop Swing is a classy guy. Puts his palms, he says, "Venerable Sir, could we ask some words from you?" He said. Bhante looks around and goes, "We are all in the same boat together." That was it. All he said. And everybody went, "Oh." The wisdom, you know. And it had to do with not having said a single anything, you know, but it came from his heart, and it was enough, you know. That was it. We're all in the same boat together. Jews and Muslims and Sikhs and Brahma, you know. We're all in the same boat together. Same kind of thing, and it was the perfect thing to say for that gathering. Okay, when in suffering and difficulty, I think, may all living beings live as they wish, be at ease, and be unobstructed in all they do. Okay, the last line of each of these verses is carries the mail, you know, that's the power line, and it's the wish. And some of them are really complex. There's 2 or 3 thoughts together, and often I find I have to read it and then kind of savor it. I have to let it percolate a bit before I get the full sense of it. Let's see. It was when in suffering and difficulty. Okay, the bodhisattva is suffering. Right? Oh, it's red. Next one down. Here we go. There it is. 若在阿难，当愿众生随意自在，所行无碍. Okay, so if the bodhisattva is in nan, in danger and trouble, we translated it as suffering and difficulty. May every being, he takes that opportunity to offer a prayer, 随意自在, according to what they seek, be completely at ease. 所行无碍, and what they do never meet any obstacle. Everything that you do is smooth and slick. So, have I ever been in suffering and difficulty? Yeah. What did I do then? Mostly, you know, thought, first of all, someone to blame. Had to be somebody's fault. And then, what to do to get myself out of it without being blamed, you know. That's pretty much the first thought. And the Bodhisattva says, no, actually, it's an opportunity to go from me to others, to go from small to limitless, go from self to living beings. And he does with a prayer. May they all live as they wish, be at ease, and unobstructed in everything they do. Okay, that's the flavor of this chapter. That's the end of the at-home section. From here on, over to page 11, down at the bottom, it's all about monks and nuns. The Bodhisattva leaves home. And I thought, in light of these last couple, it might be nice to share something that David Rounds gave. Last night we gave a song. Rounds wrote a new song that we did last night. In 2013, I think Dharma Master Lai was here for this one. David wrote a poem. And he wrote it from his meditation experience in this hall. And I think he read it the last night, if I'm not mistaken, called One Beat Short of Still. This is a poem. The white mist rises silently across the hemlocks. The thrush is awake, tuning her secret guitar. The owl glides in the shadows, sounding the unanswerable who. Change is slow along this river. Time is one beat short of still, stopping, in other words, not quite stopping. Sweet river, my friend, in 100 years, will your clear current babble in the morning? Will you hear the sound of the ancient chant? Will the Buddha still hold you in his hand? That's verse 1. The white veil lifts from the face of the trees, the guardian hemlock, the fragrant firs, the battle-scarred trunks in the dark birch grove. There the thrush hides as her song soars. Sweet bird, my friend, in 100 years, will your granddaughter's daughter still sing in the morning? Will she hear the sound of the ancient chant? Will the Buddha still hold her in his hand? Change is slow along this river. Time is one beat short of still. Sweet bird, my friend, in 100 years, will your granddaughter's daughter still sing in the morning? Will she hear the sound of the ancient chant? Will the Buddha still hold her in his hand? Change is slow along this river. Time is one beat short of still. Okay, the last verse. The turtle spirit rests on the mountain. Even the mists do not know she is there. She hasn't forgotten who gave her her name. She is waiting to see him once more. Sweet spirit, my friend, in 100 years, will you still be watching with your sleepy eyes? Will you hear the sound of the ancient chant? Will the Buddha still hold you in his hand? Change is slow along this river. Time is one beat short of still. Change is slow along this river. Time is one beat short of still. Poetry has power, huh? Okay, yeah, yes, Prab.
It's helpful. These past 9 verses has really brought to life a story that I know about a king who was trying to give away his kingdom. You know the story? You know this?
The king who was trying to give away kingdom?
Wanted to give away his kingdom.
Let's hear it.
So, once upon a time in a land far, far away, there was a kingdom with a very benevolent king. And this kingdom was getting old. He had no heirs. He had no sons or daughters to give the kingdom away to. And so he just put a call out to all the commoners in the kingdom, asking anyone who thought that they were deserving of this kingdom, they could come around at a certain day and they can come over to the palace and they could tell the king why they thought they deserved this kingdom. And so on this day, all these people came to the palace and they were welcomed with this great, amazing welcome, which included everyone being first directed towards this giant wardrobe where even all the commoners dressed in rags were given all these amazing clothes and fancy jewelry so that everyone looked the same. Everyone got coiffed and everyone got bathed and their hair done in a way that everybody looked the same, and everybody looked to have equal privilege and equally deserving of this kingdom. And then they were brought into the dining room, and they were fed the finest meal possible in the whole kingdom, and in it all they were served on the finest cutlery, on the finest plates, adorned. All on the walls were all these fine paintings and sculptures, and it was just a marvelous feast. And they were served all kinds of expensive wines, and the whole thing was just a big giant celebration. There was music everywhere, and it was just a fine feast. And so several hours went by, and the king was waiting upstairs. And the plan was that once everybody had their fill, that they would come up one by one and start to make their case to the king. So several hours went by and nobody showed up, and so the king said, well, let's just be a little bit more patient. And then eventually they heard no more sound from down below, and so the king sent down his attendant to see what had happened, and the attendant went downstairs and found that everybody had left. They'd taken all of the clothing, they'd taken all of the paintings off the walls, they'd taken all the sculptures, they'd taken all the cutlery, all the dishware, everything was gone, all the rugs. And so it turns out that everybody had forgotten why they were actually there.
Were they drunk?
Well, the moral of the story, of course, is that everybody was there to inherit the kingdom, and they had gotten distracted by all this craving, by all these precious gems, by all of this fancy music, by all of this, and they had forgotten, because of all this craving, the actual purpose for their visit.
Beautiful. That makes the point. Yeah, you twinkle and help. That's good. Okay, can we turn to page 9? Okay, if you count down, the first, there's 2 lines, that doesn't count. The first stanza is in a crowd or gathering, 1, 2, 3. When I renounce the householder's life. Okay. Let's do. Let's do down at the bottom of the page. Let's do 4. Okay. Here we go. Together. When I renounce the householder's life, I think, may all living beings be unhindered in leaving the householder's life and gain a liberated mind. When I enter the monastery, I think, may all living beings proclaim all kinds of principles free from error and contention. When I visit senior or junior teachers, I think, may all living beings skillfully serve their teachers and elders and learn to practice wholesome dharmas. When I request permission to enter monastic life, I think, may all living beings get non-retreating dharmas and be unobstructed in their minds. Okay. So we have 5 monastic men and 4 monastic women in the room with us tonight. Dharma Master Lai came right on time, perfect timing, to see how some Manjushri Bodhisattvas illustrating how to live right, because that's the basic question. How do I live right without mistakes? Ask the foremost in wisdom Bodhisattva. So part of his answer is coming to describe the steps you take in your mind as you leave home, as you become a monastic. And there aren't many monastics in the world. My goodness. Catholics have monastics. Hindus, the Vedanta monks, are monastics. Buddhists have celibate monastics. And you have a hard time looking around the rest of the world to find any more. Greek Orthodox have some monastics. Not very many. And then, that's men. Then you start looking for female monastics, and even the Buddhists have a hard time. There are no Thai female monastics. There are no Tibetan female monastics. They have to get ordained in other traditions. right? There are 10 precept nuns in the Thai forest tradition. Sumedho opened an expedient, but it's not working. It stopped pretty much. If you want to be a nun in the Tibetan tradition, you go to Malaysia or Taiwan to get ordained. Then you put on a red robe. So interesting, huh? Vietnamese Mahayana, you can go to Vietnam where their Vietnamese temples will ordain you. But other than that, there are a few. There's a new movement in Sri Lanka for Theravada monks to ordain women. There are a few. But that's it, So when Master Shu Yun, our grand teacher, says the Dharma's hanging by a thread, that's what he's talking about. That here we are, and we have 9 monastics in robes. You all today made offerings to support our lifestyle. We did ceremonies together at 5 a.m. We meditated together. We looked at the sutras. We cultivated half a dozen different Dharma doors together. You got to sit with monks and nuns that are in many of the details not at all different from the lifestyle of monks and nuns in the Buddha's time because of our teacher, because of that affinity, our connection with Shifu and his connection with the Dharma. He is carrying it to the West, and so here we are speaking English, talking about reading the Avatamsaka Sutra and practicing a lot of the practice. I mean, this makes sense, right? This is not obscure, far away, bizarre, philosophical. It's not. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I connect to that, right? That's amazing. This is a 2,500-year-old, document, minimum, if not more, and yet it's alive today because of one pilgrim pioneer monk, our teacher, who said, we're going to plant it here. There are other Chinese monks who came to the West, but they didn't say, I want to share this in the West. Shifu did, so here we are. And we're sitting on the top of an Oregon mountain, right? Coastal range, looking at this book, which is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. This is, look at the conditions that had to come together to bring us here today. So, hanging by a thread, yeah, but if it's alive in your heart, if it's alive in my heart, it's alive. It's going. Douglas, you want to make a comment here? Is this, I was motivated to pick on you. Why is that? Erudite commentary about how vital our tradition is?
Well, it's as vital as everybody's cultivation is. So, it's as vital. I think what Shifu used to say about that particular issue is the Dharma's only alive insofar as each person in the room is actually cultivating at the utmost of their level of cultivation, and insofar as each of us is doing that, it's alive. Insofar as if each of us is not doing that, it's not alive. So he certainly gave us a super good model and all the resources and everything to do it with, but it's still up to us to do it. So
we are all in the same boat together. Amen. So we have a novice from Poland who, could have done all kinds of other stuff, but found his path to city of 10,000 Buddhas. Okay, so Shifu goes to Poland in 1990. Okay, and so the huge turnout, right? All these people take refuge. And so I remember we were sitting there. We had who was the translator? Magura was the translator. This amazing fellow. And so there's a big buzz coming in from the door of where we are in Warsaw, or in Jelenia Góra. Yeah. And so we're going buzz, 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 buzz. And so Shifu says, who's coming? And Magura says, well, Venerable Sir, this is someone he has a question for you. And Shifu says, oh, that's pretty good. The guy comes in, he's really, really humble. This guy he's kind of, doesn't want to raise his eyes, and he comes in, he bows just like stays down, and he bows again, and he bows a third time. Sherpa's, what's your question? He says. And the guy, he just like, he kind of didn't want to bring it out, and Magura is translating. He says, Venerable Master, this is our best meditator, the best meditator in Warsaw. He's been sitting in an attic in meditation posture for about 6 years now. Sherpa says, yes. What's his question? He wants to know if it's okay if he changes his huato. He's been investigating Hu for 6 years, and he wants to know if he can change. That's his question. Sincere. Y'all, nobody got it. Okay. He's been sitting for 6 years going, who's mindful of the Buddha? Who's mindful of the Buddha? One method, 6 years, and now it's time. Did I get the details right? So now he wants to know if it's okay to change. He's tired of that one. He wants to know why.
What did Master Hua say?
Sherpa said, Koi. And then Sherpa is seeing who this is and deeply, but we're all going, I haven't meditated a huato for 6 minutes, much less, 6 years, and now he's ready for another. That's sincere. I mean, the guy's 6 years, he's sitting there like, I have a method, I don't need another one, but 6 years, I need another one. So. Oh boy. So Poland, there's really a real future for the Dharma in Poland. And some Poles come to America to cultivate, so that's, we'll take them. Oregon. They come to Oregon. There we go. That's right. We came up with the Medicine Buddha mantra in Sanskrit, Namo Bhagavate Vaisajya Guru, and we're going to resurrect that, and we hope maybe inspire other songs. Or poetry. You've heard David's poem. We have how many? What's our total number here, Stacy? 80 something. So 80 some people. Many creative souls here. Please absorb the environment and bring it out in music or poetry or something. There's space for that. Welcome. Okay, here we go. If people hear us sing, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. Change the break word to dispel, right? May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless mind dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise.